Basically salaries and other agency liabilities.
Do you think you'll be able to pay back the loan shortly or when?
Well, we have the loan for 30 days, and we are reasonably sure that we'll be able to pay it back within the 30 days. But there is a good possibility that our grant will be forthcoming sooner than that.
Has the lack of funds hurt the agency in the past 42 days?
No, we had unexpended funds, and we were able to utilize those funds in a judicious way.
Well, I'm pretty well pleased. It's still kind of early yet, you know. I just might say that I'm having a little bit of luck. Usually the first part of spring training I have a little time, you know, as far as my timing come around, but so far I'm very pleased.
Are you an early starter, or do you come on later in the season?
Well, no, in spring training I usually have a tough time, you know. It's just, say this spring is one of those things, everything is sort of falling, you know, pretty well. But I'm sort of a late spring training hitter. I usually get started about, say, 2 or 3 weeks after the season gets started.
Yeah, it sure is, Jerry. It was quite a night. I was waiting for that 28 goal and 79 point for quite a while, and I was sure happy to see it go in, especially in the circumstances, because you know, Kansas City gave us a pretty rough game, and those 2 quick goals just came in handy.
Can it happen just like that? A man be out of position and then you're in for a goal, aren't you?
It's just part of the game, Jerry. You could go 10 games and you get all kinds of chances, and they won't go in, and suddenly, bang, bang, you get 2 goals in 10 seconds. Just one of those things. Hard to explain.
What shape is the club in now?
Well, I imagine in another week or so, everybody would be healthy again, and we should be just ready to get into the playoffs with everybody healthy, and it's going to be a tough decision for the coach to decide who he has to sit out, and it's good feeling to know that everybody's there. It gets everybody going, and puts a little pressure on the forwards, because they know that if they don't produce, they'll have to sit out. So we should be in very good shape for the playoffs.
For instance, if the officer stops an automobile, he doesn't know what's in that car. He doesn't know what kind of people are in that car. The people might be mentally deranged and have a record of hating officers. They may have committed a felony, and there may be something there that the computer can tell them. So before they even search that car or before they even approach that car, they can, in milliseconds, they can get information from the computer, and then they can know whether to approach that car with caution or whether to go up to it as they ordinarily would.
Admittedly, there is something of an ominous ring to the fact that the law enforcement officer will be fed information about you or your car or your past by a computer and will use that information to gauge the manner in which he approaches your car. With people nowadays more and more concerned about numbers and computers, still law enforcement officers say something like this has to be done if they ever hope to win their war on crime. Jerry Taft, Channel 8 News, Fort Worth. Yeah, I like that better.
The first place authorities turn to as a source of possible identity of persons found dead without any type of identification on their person is a missing persons file. Several cases have been solved in this manner, but they are few and far between. The major source of information comes from the Fort Worth Police Department's identification records. More than 1 million index cards cross-filed on 500,000 fingerprint records are used continuously on a day-to-day basis. Primarily, the files supply information on men and women who have criminal records. And each day, missing person inquiries and requested information reaches the Fort Worth office via teletype linked to a nationwide law enforcement communications line. About 98% of identification cases are eventually solved here by Captain H.B. McMahon and his staff in the Identification Bureau. But before they can begin their search, the preliminary work must be done.
What is the first thing that you do?
Well, of course, we depend on the medical examiner for much of our help. We take pictures. Crime scene search people are notified, and they are at the scene as soon as we are. They take pictures of the body as it is when it's found. Fingerprints is real important. In fact, it's the most important thing, because if they've ever been handled, it's easy to identify them if we can get a set of prints from the body.
If they don't have a police record, though, this kind of presents a problem, doesn't it?
Certainly does. In fact, one of the last cases we have, we picked up prints from the residents of this party and enough to identify her.
The police departments in the county depend upon the work of the chief medical examiner, Dr. Felix Groats. The problems faced by Groats and his staff are magnified by the fact that many times the body has no identifying marks, such as scars or tattoos. Many times, too, the person found dead is a hobo with no ID and no address. That's a police problem, though. Dr. Groats' duty is to provide all the technical data gathered through examination of the corpse.
The first thing what we do, we would like to establish the sex, the race, the height, the weight of that particular person. We take multiple photographs for identification. Then it is our task to provide body fluids for examination, such as urine, blood, stomach contents, which are important, clues, samples of hair, imprints of the teeth, which are very important in identification. We have to do a complete autopsy examination in order to determine, in first place, the exact cause of death, which will give us idea whether that person died of natural causes or died of a violent death, and if so, what type of violent death.
Each autopsy and investigation into an unidentified body takes at least 3 to 5 days. Many times, the investigation drags on for weeks and even months. And in the case of 7 persons found in Tarrant County, they are sometimes never identified. Lieutenant Ball of the Homicide Detail says there is no simple solution that will make their job any easier in such cases. As a result, unsolved identity cases that are proven to be homicides result in murderers going unpunished. Without any identity of the corpse, it proves difficult to find a motive to link anyone to the crime. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move in Fort Worth.
I can't see that it would hurt the council in any way to have such a person, and I'm sure it would be helpful. Some members of the council have been concerned about such a person being on the council in terms of a voting member. And since within the ordinance itself we have the capability of having ex officio members, such people could certainly fall in that category without us having to spend a great deal more time fighting over whether or not such a person should have a vote. I personally, don't see anything wrong with it.
Do you think it would be beneficial to the Drug Abuse Council to have a person from the drug culture who is on the inside of this business in Dallas?
Yes, I think it'd be beneficial. If he'd work with us.
These signs are like many throughout the city of Dallas, directing people to various bike routes in the city. Today, Georgia Traylor, my research assistant, David Dick, a specialist in bike trails throughout the city of Dallas, and I are taking a bike ride throughout White Rock Lake Park. David, where are they located?
The bike routes are presently located in the White Rock Lake Park area and the Keys Park area. These are both part of the pilot project to eventually encompass the entire city with bike routes.
How long have they been in existence?
Bike route designations were put up back in July as the beginning of the program and have gradually expanded to the entire pilot program as it is today.
Why were they chosen? I've noticed that some of them are not particularly scenic routes.
Bike routes are selected on the basis of traffic surveys. These include traffic volumes, terrain, and aesthetic appeal. We try to incorporate all of these things and at the same time give direct routes to schools, parks, and other recreational areas. Hopefully, this would include very aesthetically pleasing scenery and places. Sometimes, evidently, we're not able to do this.
If you wonder where the bicycle trails are located in the city of Dallas, David, where can you get a copy of them?
If you desire information concerning the location of these bike routes, you should try to contact the Parks Department or the Traffic Control Department. They would be happy to advise you of their location and send out any literature that they have.
Georgia, David, thanks for pumping. If you have any questions, call me at Contact 8. That number is 263-3404. That's Contact 8, and I'm Jean Lupin.
Over 100 people, state officials, friends, relatives, arrived this morning at the Taylor County Courthouse ready to attest to the good character of the defendants. Their mere presence in the courtroom was enough as the trial came to a speedy close. The judge agreed to assess the penalty rather than place that burden on the 8-woman, 4-man jury, which yesterday returned a guilty verdict of conspiring to accept a bribe. He also agreed that no purpose would be served by confining Gus Mutcher, Tommy Shannon, and Rush McGunty in prison, and gave them a 5-year probated sentence. Cameras were at last allowed in the famous 104th District Courtroom, and the trial was finally over. Mutcher, with his attorney Richard Racehorse Haynes, agreed to make a statement to the press saying, "God knows I am innocent."
I understand how the jury was persuaded that its verdict was right. They, like many good citizens of our state, have been subject to an incessant deluge of publicity, for the most part adverse and critical. I want to publicly thank the thousands of people of every walk of life from every part of Texas who have called and written, offering their help and sympathy and their understanding. God bless all of them. I am innocent and in time will be completely vindicated. I thank you.
Mutcher's executive assistant, Rush McGunty, also spoke to the news media.
This is the first opportunity we have had to face our accusers and to cross-examine them. And those of you who sat in the courtroom know what they said. If we committed a crime or if I committed a crime, I'm still unaware of what I was charged with or what I did that was against the law.
Fort Worth Representative Tommy Shannon had a statement also.
I believe in our court system. I am, as I have stated previously, innocent. I'm convinced that within this system, which I believe in completely, that I will be eventually vindicated. I hold no hatred or malice in my heart toward anyone. And I'm reminded of a scripture in the Gospel of John that says, "He who hateth his brother and says he is in the light is in darkness still."
So the trial ends on its 14th day. Gus F. Mutcher has become the highest state official ever to be convicted of a felony. The case will be appealed. He still maintains he's innocent. So in many ways, nothing has really been resolved here in the Taylor County Courthouse. But at least this chapter of the stock fraud scandal of Texas is over. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is Judy Hanna in Abilene.
It's a difficult question to answer broadly, but I would say probably in many cases they are not. But I would want to add to that there is no such thing as just one type of problem drinker driver. Perhaps particularly for the person who's just becoming a problem drinker driver and is a socially responsible person in the community, a very stiff penalty probably would have a very salutary effect on him. He doesn't want to be in jail. It may be enough to turn him around. On the other hand, a very hardcore person may require an entirely different kind of treatment, such as real medical attention through rehabilitation, Specifically, in many cases, the leniency is a factor, and the courts aren't stepping up to the responsibility the way they should.
The single greatest target of Chinese Communist foreign policy these days is our special alliance with Japan, this special relationship that we have with the biggest overseas trading partner of the United States, a special security and defense relationship, and Zhou Enlai's major thrust is to undermine this.
What do you think the Red Chinese are seeking in addition to undermining Japanese-American relations?
Well, they're seeking an acceptance as a superpower. They're seeking a regional influence, which means political influence over Japan, and in particularly in Southeast Asia. They want a sphere of influence. And this means the withdrawal of all U.S. power from the Western Pacific. And Zhou Enlai has, of course, repeated this again and again, that there cannot be peace in Asia until the U.S. power has been withdrawn from the Western Pacific. This is what the hard talk was over, I suspect, between our president and Zhou Enlai.
But he is very pleased about the trade that got him away from Cleveland as much as to the Rangers. How did you react when the news came?
Well, it was sort of surprising and all, but, you know, I wasn't really shocked because I knew the type of record that Cleveland had. I knew they was going to have to make some trade, but as far as myself being included, you know, it was one of those things. But I'm, you know, very pleased with everything, and I know I'll be playing some very nice warm weather in Dallas, and I'm looking forward to that.
You know, not only that, but there's a good chance that you'll have a few folks in the stands, and there weren't that many in Cleveland last year.
I'm afraid not. Sometime I played a game there, and wow, I think it was spring training.
Would you rather play in the South in the warm weather?
Yes, I can't I can't get loose in real cold weather. In warm weather, you know, I begin to swing, and it's real easy to get loose.
Right now, would you say?
It's very hard to say, Jerry. It seems like they just get hot one after the other. At the present time, I'd say Fort Worth is the hottest because I think they've only lost 2 or 3 games in their last 16 or 17. And Omaha was hot for a while, and Oklahoma City got hot, but they just kind of cooled off. And now, if Fort Worth ever gets in the playoff, I think they'll be the team to beat.
Why he's thinking about doing it, he's like doing somebody. He gonna figure next one he fools, he gonna get.
What are some of the problems that have been caused here as a result of busing?
This year we have had at least 29 teachers who have been abused. In addition to this, our suspensions have more than doubled during the year. Dropouts have increased. Achievement of students who have been bused has decreased. These are the kinds of information we're going to be giving them as substantiation for our position that we ought to eliminate massive forced busing.
Sound leadership.
I can agree that problems of disarmament and, well, some local conflicts or the solution of some local conflicts, these problems are interdependent, closely interdependent. But you know, it's a question, who was first, the egg or the chicken? Certainly we have to try both. I mean, we have to start negotiating on disarmament or continuing the negotiation on disarmament and trying to settle local, international, small and big conflicts. This is not a separate process. You see, you cannot start, you cannot settle one, finish with them, and then consider the other one. It's a process which has to be developed in the parallel direction: disarmament and certainly settlement of international conflicts.
The real key to the strength of my candidacy is the positive program which I am proposing for the construction of a new system of state government. Our present system is no longer capable of keeping pace with the rapid changes in society, and this is as responsible for the ever-increasing drift of power to the federal level as it is for a government of influence peddling. To end the waste in Texas government, I think we have to start with the vast bureaucracy. For we have a government that is organized more for patronage than for efficiency and effectiveness. For over 20 years, economy-minded legislators have been attempting to pass legislation to start an economy commission to find ways to streamline Texas government. It has yet to pass.